All right, so you want to get into speaking, you want to use your story to make a difference, but your story is so big, you have no idea where to begin. I got this question from a friend on Facebook, and she's asking just that. She said, I want to get into speaking, but my story's so big, where do I even begin? Which part of my story should I tell? Well, there's a couple of things with that, because number one, not every part of your story should be told, and number two, if you try and tell everybody everything, you're just going to overwhelm people, you're going to confuse them, you're going to burn them mentally, and they're not going to get much out of it. It's actually, the whole term, the whole phrase, less is more, is actually better in this case, because people can only comprehend so much. So when you make it very clear and simple, your message, it's easier to understand, and actually people enjoy it more. All right, so a couple of things about which part of your story to use. Number one, which part of your story do you want to talk about most? Maybe you have 3 or 4 major parts of your story. Which one do you want to talk about most? But also couple that with this question. Is there something that people always ask you about? Are people always asking you how you do something or how you overcame something, or they're asking you about a part of your life that's obviously of interest to people because you get a lot of people asking you about it? That's another thing. Think about this. What part of your story have you pulled lessons from that those lessons can actually apply to other people's lives and circumstances and solve their problems? And by the way, that's huge. Other than the fact of what you want to talk about, that's probably the number one thing that you need to start asking is, what part of my story provided me lessons that I can give people as advice that can help them get through the challenges and the problems they face on a daily basis? Because people pay for solutions. People will be interested in your message if it brings them a solution to their problems. Now, at the same time, you don't want to just pick a part of your story because it solves a problem unless you truly want to talk about that. For example, I heard this story about this lady. I don't know her name. It was another speaker telling the story, but it makes a good point. She was trained by someone else to speak on suicide because her sister had committed suicide, and they thought, hey, you know what, that'd be a great topic for you, and you could do suicide awareness. And she was getting booked and she was speaking, but after a while she just got so dragged down because she was constantly having to relive this story of her sister committing suicide. So obviously you don't want to do something like that just because, hey, it meets a need, but is it something you actually want to talk about, and are you competent in that advice that you're going to give? And by the way, that story of that lady, what she actually ended up wanting to do was not talk about suicide. What she actually wanted to do, according to the story I got, was she wanted to talk about women's empowerment. She wanted to empower women, not just talk about suicide in particular and relive this awful story that took place as a part of her life with her sister. So when it comes to picking a piece of your story, again, you can't tell your whole story, not all at once at least, all right? So think about, what do you want to talk about? Where are you most competent? What part of your story did you learn lessons from, your life story, whatever your experiences? Which one of those in particular did you take lessons from that you can offer people as advice that solves their problems? All right, again, that's huge. In speaking, as in any business, you're paid to solve problems, to be a problem solver and a solution provider. If you're not doing that, nobody really knows what you're doing. All right, and don't get me wrong, I was in that category for the first few years also because I simply didn't know any better. All right, so what do you want to talk about? And really, what lessons did you pull out of whatever you want to talk about that actually applies to people's lives and can help them solve their problems? When you identify that, where those things come together, you have a really, really hot starting point with your message. So leave a comment if you have more speaking questions, how to get into speaking, how to use your story. I get so many questions that I'll answer in other videos. I'm actually here right now in southeast Georgia. I'm almost right on the coast doing resilience training for the Air Force. And this is actually the 4th talk this week I've done for the U.S. Air Force on resilience. And so I love what I do. I get to speak into people's lives. I've been doing this about a decade now. And so leave a comment or a question below. If you're watching this on YouTube, click subscribe. Leave a question. What's your number one biggest hurdle that's keeping you from using your story to make a difference as a speaker? Leave a comment below and let me know that. Click subscribe and like, and share this with somebody if you think it'll help them. All right, so anyways, if you want to learn more about this, you can check me out at useyourstory.com. It's an online mentoring program that I have, teaching people how to make a difference in an income, sharing their story just like I've done. And so, I mean, over the past 10 years, I've been to, I think they said 42 U.S. states. I've been in 7 countries and on 4 continents, speaking to live audiences, sharing my story in an effective way in order to help other people. So you can do the same. There's no reason you can't. You just need to know what to do and know what to put in place and have some things set up and said right and said well. And you can be off to the races and making a really, really great difference in the world. Because at the end of the day, your story does matter and somebody can be helped by it. So leave a comment and I look forward to reading them.